Hi, hello everyone. Today we get to interview Ron Sukenick, author of a couple books, does a lot of speaking, and is probably the only lifetime member of BNI, which is always fun and exciting. So Ron, glad to have you with us today.
Well, thank you, Andrew. It's a treat. I can hardly wait to hear what I've got to say.
Love it. Well, then just start off real quick tell us a little bit about who you are, what you've done, and some of the fun things you've seen in life.
Well, I wanted to, if I can, I'd like to begin with what you just kind of stated about BNI. I met Ivan Meisner back in 1987, and we developed a partnership, and I was the guy that actually began to expand outside of California. In those days, we were known as the network, and I launched it in Indiana as the Indiana Business Network. But I really want to make sure everybody's pretty clear that I just loved the model that Ivan, he was known as Ivan at that time. He was not a doctor yet, and nor was it BNI, it was the network. But I loved the model, and I expanded the model. So I want everybody to get clear that the real brains behind that business and that model was really Ivan, Dr. Meisner, right? So that's him. That's not me. But I had my first book published in 1995. It was called Networking Your Way to Success. I had a second, I contributed to one of Ivan's books, Masters of Networking, identified as one of 96 people worldwide as a master networker. Ended up with taking networking into a concept called net being, B-E-I-N-G, a word that captures the essence of a relationship mindset. That book was called The Power is in the Connection. Then I had a third book, and I just want to share this with people. It's kind of interesting. This book here, if you look at the guy's name on the bottom, it says Nick Rowten, G-N-I-K-R-O-W-T-E-N. Well, that's networking backwards. And in 1995, this guy said the 8 magic words of networking. And for those that are interested in networking, hey, what's the 8 magic words, right? It's I know someone that can get that done. And that's all he said in 1995. So I wrote a story I teamed up with Ken Williams. This came out in 2013. This was an Amazon bestseller. And in 21 days, Nick becomes through the eyes of a fictional character, becomes this master networker. And then my fourth book is the continuation of this story with Nick, which is 21 Days to Success with LinkedIn. So I'm a full-time professional speaker, a published author. I'm a thought leader. I've been under contract with Workforce Development. I'm under contract with the Department of Defense. And if that's not enough, I retired from the Army, and I was in Vietnam in the mid-'60s.
Wonderful. Thank you for that service. So what I really want to get into a little bit is just your books on networking. I know the clients I talk to and everything else ask me a lot about networking. They seem to go to a lot of these events, chamber mixers. And in fact, I was reading a post from a coach in Germany who wrote, you can always tell the coach in the room at a networking event, he's the one with the blue suit, and he's always going to try to help fix you. And I thought that was rather amusing because it's something I know a lot of coaches do, to go around and try to find and fix people because they're broke. So in your mind, as you look at LinkedIn, especially because I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn, I love the platform and kind of where it's going, just networking in general. How do you see in-person networking at chamber events and BNI and Gold Star and those sort of groups and LinkedIn working together?
Well, they work together great, right? Just as online and face-to-face. So the shift, look, when you go to a networking event, you have to accept that networking is awkward, it is hit and miss, it is situational, and it's never about you. It's always about the other person. Nobody really cares about you, Andrew. I mean, I know you're an interesting guy, and you're a coach, and you do bookkeeping, and you're a great networker, but they don't care about you. So the question Andrew would say to himself then is, who are they interested in? And it's obvious. They're interested in themselves. Well, if that's true, then what a great strategy that is. So here's probably the biggest mistake most people make, Andrew, when they go to a networking event. And again, I've been at it for 30 plus years. People go to networking events to, well, let me ask you the question. I'll ask you, why do people go? to a networking event, Andrew, from your opinion?
In my opinion, it's just to meet people.
Okay.
And usually a lot of folks are looking for that next piece of business I've come across as well. But me personally, I go just to meet and talk with people because I enjoy people.
Okay, so so everybody loves the joy of interaction. We got that. And you're right, people go there because they love the joy of interaction. They want to meet people, but in essence, they want to better themselves, right? That's why you're there. Andrew, if I met you at an event, it's pretty clear that you want to better yourself. So the real focus with me is to practice that whole giver's gain philosophy that B&I loves, Gold Star loves, but it just works. That if I can help Andrew, it'll make it easier for Andrew to want to help me. If we help one another, we all do better as a result. So here's the biggest mistake that people make. They go to an event and they try to get people interested in them. That's what they're there to do. I'm trying to get you interested in me and who I am and what I do. My suggestion to your viewing audience, Andrew, is simply to become the most interested person in the world. Become the most interested person. Don't try to get people interested in you. What happens is it creates a desire in people to have an interest in becoming interested in you. And if you become interested in one another, you all do better as a result. So that's probably the biggest mistake. And that's what I think works beautifully well on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Pinterest. Well, I don't care what platform you're on, certainly from a face-to-face. Be the most interested person in the room.
Oh, that's right in line with something I've always told people. This works for telemarketing or networking, whatever, whatever form you're talking to somebody in. And I've seen this happen in my own time when I stop in and see a business owner. They'll go, hey, I got 5 minutes to talk with you about. An hour later, I leave their office. Why? Because people always have time to talk about what they want to talk about. And people love to talk about themselves. It's just how it all works out. It's just a wonderful way to phrase that.
Yeah, and the real question to everybody is, if I was in a room and with 100 people, and I said, how many of you are here to sell something? Everybody would raise their hand. The question then would be, how many of you are here to actually buy something? And most people don't raise their hand. So you got to know there's somewhat of a disconnect. So what's left? Well, I recognized in 2004, I was the guy that said networking is dead. It's dead. In fact, I'll say it right now again. It's dead. And what's dead about it is that it's awkward, it's hit and miss, it's situational, lacks support, and it's never about you. So what's alive? The concept of going after the relationship. Let me give you another example of another mistake most people make. And let me use you as an example, Andrew. I know you love networking. I know you love connecting to people. So you go to a chamber event or a networking event. I'm not talking about a business referral club. I'm talking about where you just go to meet people. And let's say you go out and you shake hands and you pass business cards and you meet 10 or 15 people. For somebody like you, Andrew, that's easy, right? For me, it's easy. Be honest with everybody, Andrew. How many of those 10 or 15 people you met for the first time actually send you an email or send you a note in the mail or make a phone call and say, Andrew, what a pleasure it was to meet you at last evening's event? How many of those people are doing that, Andrew?
Oh, 1 or 2 out of 15.
Okay, so let's say 1 or 2 out of 15. Well, the question everybody that's viewing this should understand is, what are they going after? Well, those people are going after the sale. They're not going after the relationship. They don't have a system in place. Systems are predictable and reliable. So what I'm suggesting to everybody is that they learn what I call the magic of 6. And for those that are watching this, please take some notes. 6. And here's the premise. If you can get up to 6 interactions with anybody, it is likely you have a good beginning for a relationship that never ends. So if I met somebody at an event the first time, I would send them an email within 24 hours or less. You see, take the opposite of what we just said, Andrew, before I forget. 1 or 2 people are following up with you. If I asked you how many are you following up with, you don't have to tell me, but you may not be following up with all 15 people that you met because you're interested in connecting with people that you feel a connection to.
Yep.
Well, guess what, everybody? The connection between you and the people you meet is between you, that person, and something else. Between you, that person, and something else. So if you can't figure out that you're an American, that you love Kentucky basketball, or you like the Indianapolis Colts, because I live in Indianapolis, even though they're not in the playoffs, we got that. But if I can't find anything in common, then there's no connection. The only time that I think I may have some connection is when I think I can make a sale. And that's going after the sale. So my suggestion is the power of 6. Here's how it works. I meet you, Andrew, somewhere for the first time. That's my first interaction. Then what I do is I send an email to you or anybody I met that evening, everybody, and I say something like this: Andrew, what a pleasure meeting you at the Chamber of Commerce meeting. It's amazing what happens when people come together. If you ever have a need to make any connection, I'd love putting people together. If you get a moment, take a look at my website. Look forward to seeing you sometime in the future, right? I can say that. Well, that's my second interaction. Well, guess what? If there's a reason for you and I to connect, I will call you within 72 hours or less, right? If there's a reason to. You're not connecting to everybody that way, but that's my third interaction. If for some reason you and I should get together because maybe we can help one another and maybe we need to meet somewhere and have a discussion, well, that'll be our fourth interaction. After I met you at the Starbucks or wherever we're meeting, guess what? Now I'm up to, I'm going to send you another email, which will be my fifth introduction. And the bottom line is, if I can get up to 6 interactions with anybody, it's likely we have a good beginning for a relationship that never ends. Increased interaction gives us increased cooperation. Repetition builds the reputation.
Oh, that's wonderful 6 steps. It's something similar to what I do even on LinkedIn myself. Whenever I connect with somebody, and they could be a perfect stranger, and I've done it this way before. You know, when I'm targeting a certain industry or something like that, a certain vertical, I'll connect with people on LinkedIn out of the blue, send them a nice personalized request. You know, there's my first contact. Second one, I said, hey, here's a great article that details this guy and what he did over here, you know, whatever else. It's a good article. My third one, and that's amazing the responses I get after I send them an article. The third one is another article or something like that, and think one of my systems I have for LinkedIn, I actually send them a video interview I did with somebody in their industry. And I say, hey, here's your video in the industry. Hey, I think you'd be a great interview. Let me know if you want to. Here's a link to schedule it. And I have people schedule it.
Yeah, you see, it's that frequency of interaction.
Yeah.
Gets you closer to going after the so-called relationship. In fact, when I talk about relationship, Andrew, if you ask anybody how important are relationships in their business, most people will tell you they're paramount. They're very important. Yeah. Well, if you ask people how you define one, or if you ask people what kind of relationship strategies do you have that you put in place, most people don't have any.
You know, yeah, that's it right there. Even when people say word of mouth is my _1 way of getting business for myself, right? And I say, well, okay, well, what are your strategies for increasing that or doing with that? And they go, well, they don't have anything.
And that's why my book, The Power and the Connection, became so popular, at least within so many circles, because I talked about relationship strategy. You know, one of the strategies in the book, the first one, what was called living life purposefully, living life with purpose. That was the first strategy, because I figured out with my writing partner that if I want to build and strengthen and deepen relationship with other people, I have to first strengthen relationship with myself. And most people don't really have a real sense of purpose. I mean, go jump over to LinkedIn for a minute. 400 million people, Andrew, on LinkedIn. The average amount of time people spend on LinkedIn worldwide is 17 minutes. The second quarter for 2015 with 35 billion, with a B, billion, page views. And when you try to figure out what are some of the biggest mistakes people are even making on LinkedIn, is sure, they don't have completed profile, but they don't have a sense of purpose. They're not even sure why they're there. And unless you figure that one out, you'll never embrace the power of what LinkedIn is all about. But that's another story. By the way, one more strategy from the Power of the Connection book is what I call providing a joyful experience to others. You know, I started to realize in the early days Again, I go back to the 70s with networking with people. I just love people. I mean, they're great. But, I really figured out that all I had to do was give people a joyful experience of themselves. And how do you go out and value the relationship with people? If I met you at an event, Andrew, and I learned something from you, and I was a great listener. You see, you start to realize that some of these nomad networkers, as Ivan actually would call people, nomad networkers, they just talk. That's all they do is talk. And when you speak, you learn what you know. When you listen, you learn what other people know. So if I was meeting you at an event and all I did was listen to you and ask you great questions, not about buying anything, but questions that teach me things about you and the work you do, you get to have what is known as a joyful experience of yourself.
Yeah.
And that's the magic in networking. In fact, that reminds me of even a story, and I know you've had this experience. You ever go to an event and somebody comes up to you and all they do is they talk. They don't even know who you are. They know nothing about you, but they keep talking. And then they say, hey, what a pleasure to meet you. And then they leave. And the question is, well, what do those people get from that exchange? And if you ask most people, Andrew, I'm not going to ask you because I don't want to put you on the spot. But if I ask people,
that's all right.
Okay, well, what did that person? Okay, I'll put you on the spot.
Yeah, put me on the spot.
Somebody comes up to you, they're yapping. They show no interest in you whatsoever. They're not even sure your name, even though you got a name tag. And then they hold out their hand and they say, hey, Andrew, what a pleasure to meet you, and they leave. What did they get from that exchange?
They got probably my business card and very little respect or anything else from me.
Okay, and I'll tell you what I think that they got. And it had nothing to do with you. They get a joyful experience of themselves. That's it. And that's the power of going to a face-to-face networking event. If you can meet people and they can just feel good about who they are and what they're about. You learn this from How to Win Friends. Dale Carnegie talked about it, and How to Win Friends and influence people. He goes to a party, doesn't say a word, and this person that he was listening to thought he was a great conversationalist. Yes. So to me, when I speak, I learn what I know, but when I listen, I learn what you know and what gives you competitive advantage in going after the relationship. So the next time I meet you, Andrew, if it was you, I just know so much about you. You know very little about me. You feel slightly awkward, but I'm the guy with the competitive advantage because I'm going after the relationship. So I just share that with you as another strategy.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, just to switch veins a little bit here, Ron, in your 30 years of networking, I'm sure you've done some really boneheaded things at some point in time, right?
Boneheaded?
So just to help everyone who may not, hasn't done this for 30 years, learn from one of your really, facepalm sort of moments. Share what a good facepalm moment was for you and what you learned from it and how that kind of impacted the next 30 years for you.
Okay, I want to make sure I understand the question. You're calling it a what kind of moment?
A boneheaded facepalm. Oh, I can't believe I did that. I feel so silly. Those really just dumb mistakes we make in our lives that.
Well, we all did. Look. What mistakes have I made? Look, I've made mistakes. One mistake I probably have made is I wasn't really paying attention to you, because thought moves much quicker. If you asked you which was faster, sound or light, I'm sure you would agree that sound is faster than light, or light is faster than sound.
Yep.
But thought happens to be faster than that. So one of my mistakes is I started to drift in my. I'm meeting somebody, and my thoughts go somewhere else. They get scattered. I start thinking of other things, when I have to leave or what I got to accomplish, or this person's of no value, or stuff like that. That's a mistake because, listen, I've had people meet me Look, we all know 200 to 300 people. I speak in front of 30,000 people a year. I know all kinds of people. And if you think all you get is me, as opposed to everybody else I can give you access to, that's the big mistake. Another mistake is I get distracted. I'm talking to somebody, something else happens, I shift my thinking, or here's an idea. I was at an event and I meet this person and I'm talking to this person and I ask this person a question because I want to learn from this person, and he starts talking to me. Then his friend or somebody that knows him comes up to him and says, "Hi, John." And you know what John does? He stops answering my question where I'm learning about him, and he goes somewhere and he goes to his friend to talk to him.
Huh.
So that's a mistake that someone else made. In fact, I went to an event 6 months ago, and again, I love to learn about people, and I said, "Hey, no, I'm here to learn about you." And you know what this guy said to me? He says, "No. I really want to learn about you." I said, "Wow, that's really nice." I start to talk, and then a pretty girl walks up and says, "Hi," and he turns to her and says, "Who are you? What are you all about? What can I do to help you?" And so the guy is confusing activity for accomplishment, and I think that's another mistake. I think I probably made in the past. Look, we all love the joy of interaction, but I think, Andrew, just jerking around, shaking hands, passing business cards, I mean, that's not what networking is about anymore, in my opinion. So I hope that gives you some insight. But I've made so many mistakes, but now I've just become a much better listener. I became the most interested guy in the room. I'm not trying to get you interested in me. I know I'm very interesting. I know you're going to want to meet me, and I know you're going to have a real interest in wanting me to help you. And I can. But the real fact is, by the way, I'm going to change the shade here for just a quick moment.
Yeah, go for it.
I think that might have worked better. Okay, yeah, probably.
Yeah,
oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah, look how sharp.
So let me ask you this one question, Ron, because this is one, I have clients who speak a lot just like you do. And I always say, hey, if a speaking opportunity comes up, just take it. Figure out what you're going to say after you accepted the opportunity, because speaking is a fantastic thing to do. It really polishes you. So as the speaker, you're automatically seen as the subject matter expert and a person of interest. People always want to meet you after you speak and spend time with you. So what is your strategy for not letting one person hog you, more or less, so you can actually see everyone who wants to meet with you after you get done speaking?
Okay, but I want to answer it with the way you started it. First of all, the one mistake that I've ever made in speaking, and I've been professionally speaking for about 15 years at least, maybe 20. You never speak about what you don't speak about. If somebody wants me to talk about cultural diversity, I can talk about it, but it's not what I talk about.
Right.
I'm a leading authority on the topic of business networking, relationship strategy, and I can teach anybody, I can inspire anybody to embrace the power of LinkedIn. That's what I talk about now. And then I'm a national speaker for the Secretary of Defense, and I speak before, during, and after deployments, and I've got all that down. So you only speak about that. Now, you're right. When you speak, you're positioning yourself. You're a leading authority on the topic that you're speaking about. People perceive that. They come up. And what I always do is, the way I deal with people that are hogging me is I just tell them, I want to exchange a business card. Then I tell them I'd love to talk to them more, but what I'd really like to do is make sure that I'm able to speak with everybody that wants to say, some people just want to say hello. Some people just want to say, hey, thank you so much for all that you've done and all that you're saying. So to me, it's all about that. So let me get back the picture here. Oh, there I am.
I can see you. See, you can keep on going. If you can't see, it's all right.
Okay, okay. Yeah. Okay, I'm back. Huh, that's interesting. Are you there, Andrew? Can you still
Oh
see
yeah,
me?
yeah. You never went anywhere.
Okay, never went anywhere. Okay, so good. So here's where we're at. So again, that's what I do. I shake hands. I exchange business cards. I ask them if they have a specific question. But here's what happens: 5, 6 people come up to me. You're one of them, Andrew, and you want to ask me a question. Well, what I do is say, "Well, that's a great question, Andrew. By the way, I want to talk to everybody, so everybody come closer." So I'm trying to bring everybody into the mix.
Ah,
Because that was a great question. So I'm not just dealing with Andrew when I've got 5 or 6 people wanting to talk to me because they want to learn more, they want to gain access to more. But I tell them, I say, look, I'd love to follow up with you. But, I always have these cards. They look just like this. In fact, here is a card. I have this card. Whenever I speak, Andrew, I have this card. It's like 4 up on an 8.5 by 11, and
yep.
people can check off that they want to talk to me, or they can check off that they're interested in my coaching, or they can check off that they'd like me to come and speak to an organization. And I asked them, please fill out one of these cards, and then we can follow up with one another. So, do you do a lot of speaking, Andrew?
Yes, I do at least 1 or 2 per month.
Okay, and you speak about what?
Business.
Good.
Everything I do is usually about how to get a better business.
Well, that's great, and people always want to know that, right?
Right.
I'm sure you know the name Michael Gerber.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I worked with Michael for 3 years. In fact, just so you know this, I got a call one time from Dr. Meisner, Ivan Meisner, and they were doing a new book. Him and Morgan out of Canada, one of his big franchise owners up in Canada. I forget his name, but Ivan called me and said, "Hey, Ron, I know you know Michael Gerber. You've worked with him. Can you make the introduction?" See, that's a great story, right? So that's how networking works. That's how relationships works. And guess what? I sent an email to Michael. I sent him I called him. I said, my friend Ivan Meisner runs the whole BNI thing, is very interested in including them as part of a success part of his book. Would he give him the courtesy of that phone call? And of course, Michael ended up in his book, only as a result of that, because relationships open doors. They don't always make sales.
And that brings up a huge part of networking is actually asking somebody to introduce you to somebody you see them meet. And that's one thing I love about LinkedIn is you get to see their connections. What would be your top strategy for being bold enough to ask somebody to introduce you to somebody else?
Well, I think it takes courage to be able to reach out and ask anybody anything, but I think that you're looking at a primary function of LinkedIn. My God, I would never expect, look, I can be introduced to anybody because I've got an extensive network. And I'm sure I can connect to anybody worldwide. And LinkedIn even makes it easier to connect to people because most people are accepting invitations if there's some meaning behind it. So I'm always reviewing people's, and again, I know I'm focusing on LinkedIn a little bit, but the point I want to make is I'm always interested in who in my network knows the person I want to connect to, and then I use the mechanism on LinkedIn to get an introduction. But I never have a problem introducing people to people. I never have again, if I understand their intent, if they're interested in selling something, then I'm a little bit guarded.
Yeah.
I don't connect with everybody. In fact, I had a guy the other day wanted me to connect him to a lot of military assistance groups because I do a lot of, again, I speak a lot for the military every week, just about. I couldn't even figure out who this guy was. He had a business card with no email address.
Huh.
He had a LinkedIn profile with nothing on it. So, when I can't, and so when I asked him about it, because he says, well, look, that's why I'm calling you, because I want you to get to know me. I said, well, I'm okay with getting to know you on the phone a little bit, but I really want to find other people. You see, if you go to my LinkedIn profile, which is my online reputation,
Yep.
you might find 50 or 60 people that are acknowledging who I am and what I do. They, in the form of either endorsements. I mean, I've got hundreds or 1,000 of those. and then I've got maybe 50 or 60 plus recommendations. Well, it's real easy to figure out who I am and what people think about me. But I don't, I'm very guarded with making intros unless I can understand your intent. I would open up doors for you all day long, Andrew, if for some reason you had a real reason to get connected to people. So to me, I always ask people if they can make some intros for me, and they do it every time. A lot of times I'll just go directly and I'll attach an idea that I know Andrew. Look, I noticed that you're connected to Andrew. Andrew's a good friend of mine, blah, blah, blah. I love the work that you're doing. Love to get better connected on LinkedIn. Love to discuss something that we can do meaningful. So does that answer that question?
It does. What I got from that is when you're asking somebody to introduce you to one of their contacts or connections is let them know why you want to be introduced to them and be upfront with them. Hey, I think this would be a good client for me, or hey, I think this would be a good video interview, for instance, or let people know the reason behind your connection. So, Ron, as we round out our chat this morning,
Thank you.
Could you boil down over the last 30 years of stuff to maybe 3 or 4 wonderful tips for a young business owner, a young entrepreneur, someone who's 19, 20, 22, 25 years old, who's just getting started in this world of business and connections?
Well, I think they should call me or you, or me or you. No, listen. They have to understand that, first of all, the connection between you and I, Andrew, is between you and I and something else. So you always want to figure out what the something else is. Another thing that I found that was powerful is you got to have a greater sense of purpose and focus. Because when I meet you, Andrew, and I know that your interest is to build your business, and my interest is to build my business, I happen to think you and I have an overlapping purpose. So I become purpose-driven. Then the third thing that I will tell you is don't go after the sale, go after the relationship. And start to develop relationship strategies. If, with your permission, Andrew, if anybody's interested in any of my work, they can find me. Just go to ronsukenick.com.
Yep.
ronsukenick.com, and they can find me.
Those links will be down in the description of the video, along with a link to your LinkedIn profile as well for anyone who is interested in connecting that way.
Yeah, and if they're part of the military, if anybody has ever served, if anybody's listening or viewing this and have ever served in the military, I do free mentoring, free coaching. They can talk to me. I can coach them on LinkedIn. I can coach them on how to connect face-to-face, and I can help them transition into new jobs. That's a freebie. It's my way of being in contribution.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Ron, thank you for that wonderful advice. I know a lot of folks are going to enjoy that. I enjoyed it myself. I got several good little nuggets here on my notepad next to me. And from one veteran to another, thank you for your service in Vietnam. It is much appreciated, paved the way for a lot of younger ones such as myself to come through many years later. So thank you for that. And it's a fantastic benefit, and I would encourage any veterans who watch this, definitely get in touch with Ron. That is a tremendous offer to do for free for somebody right there, and I know it's a huge thing, and I always have a special place in my heart for working with veterans as well. It's always a fun thing to help other veterans succeed in what they do. So thank you for that, Ron.
Thank you, my friend.
Again, if you need to get in touch with Ron, his description and links are down in the description of the video, so make sure you click on that, get in touch. Thank you for your time, Ron. You have a good one.
Thanks so much, Andrew. Bye-bye, everybody.